Now, we have a big problem in this country. Let me get to our first guest. Joining us, Professor Alan Dershowitz of Harvard. You know, Professor, you and I have a common bond, a love of Israel. And what has now come out on multiple occasions should outrage every American. And the fact that the Democratic Party could not take a stand and name this woman and condemn this and keep her on the committee, to me, is outrageous.
I agree with you, and I think that these Democrats, the ones on the extreme left, are trying to turn the Democratic Party into Britain's Labour Party headed by an overt anti-Semite like Corbyn. Corbyn makes the same argument, so it wasn't anti-Semitic, it was just anti-Zionist. But what Omar said is clearly anti-Semitic, and she should have been condemned by name, singled out. Anti-Semitism should have been isolated as the real problem that we're confronting, not only in this country, but around the world. But the Democrats, by watering it down, it was as if, you know, after the black children were killed in Alabama back in the civil rights movement, and somebody wanted to introduce a resolution condemning attacks on black children, some Southerners said, oh, yeah, but let's also include attacks on white children. No, that's not the way you do it. You look at the problem. The problem is anti-Semitism coming from Omar and others like her. And that has to be condemned, and that has to be condemned uniquely and singularly and strongly.
I'm worried about the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. These insane white supremacist groups, they're rearing their ugly head. I don't care where it comes from. It needs to be confronted and stopped and called out. And I thought this was an act of cowardice this week. I really did. It was disgraceful.
Look, you know what else is an act of cowardice? Because Democrats and others and people on the left won't condemn Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter in their platform
what do we want?
One
dead
country,
cops?
Israel, calls it genocidal, calls it apartheid. And look, I care about black lives. I've devoted my life to protecting black lives, but I will not support the organization Black Lives Matter because I have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism, zero tolerance for anti-Catholicism, zero tolerance for anti-Muslim, zero tolerance for any kind of bigotry. You cannot tolerate that.
That group has said, what do we want? Dead cops. What do we want them now? We have on tape. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I've got to move on, though. Let me ask you about Adam Schiff. And, Professor, this one bit of testimony of Bruce Orr is showing many lies and contradictions. This is just the beginning. We're going to see the FISA warrants. We're going to see the 302s. We're going to see the Gang of Eight information. And we're going to get all of these, all the testimony of all of these people. And what we're learning is...
We should see everything.
Okay, but what bothers me and all...
Transparency is the essence, yeah.
We now know that many people here lied under oath. What do you think of Adam Schiff? What did you think of that tape with him thinking he's talking to a Russian? What do you think of his staff spending 10 hours with Michael Cohen?
Well, we now know that the allegations in the Steele dossier aren't even supported by Steele. I think that FISA court ought to consider holding in contempt of court, people who submitted the FISA application while withholding relevant information that might have led them to a different conclusion. Look, you know, we live in such a strange time. The other headline is Jesse Smolin's getting indicted. Thankfully, it's very important. Anybody who falsely accuses anybody should be called to task. I've been falsely accused. Fortunately, I was able to disprove the allegations. But the people who accused me should be prosecuted and should be investigated. Nobody should be able to make false accusations and get away with it.
I've lived with that my whole career, and the standard is so high, even you and an army of Alan Dershowitzes couldn't win a case. I am glad about these Covington kids that have a great lawyer in Linwood, and what happened in his case was a disgrace. All right, I want to remind everybody, you are going to write an introductory response to the Mueller report?
That's right.
And that will be coming out?
And it will be out just days after the Mueller report becomes public. I'm working with a very, very fast publisher, Skyhorse. They will be the first ones out with the report with my introduction.
All right, Professor, thank you for being with us tonight.